Sunday, January 29th, 12:18 p.m. I'm here with three lads. You may know them. David, Stuart, Robert from the Zephyrs. Hello, everyone. My name is W.A.K. William. Welcome to another special event. This is an album listening party plus Q&A with the Zephyrs, and we are going to be having a great conversation with David, Stewart, and Robert regarding a brand new release album that just was released on Friday, and we will get into that, and actually how to do a listening party if you've never done one before. So for Sapphire Needle, which we'll be honoring today, I will tell you how to queue up the album, so on and so forth. We want to welcome you. If you have any questions for David, Stewart, Robert, feel free to put them in the comments box and we will field them as we go along. And after the album and listening party, I'll be talking to all three of the band members about the album and we'll take a deeper dive into their work. And then that will be a wrap. So welcome, David, Stewart, Robert, aka Zephyrs. Congratulations on your sixth album. How are you feeling today?
Thank you. Good, thanks. Yeah, it's just came out on Friday, so it seems to be going well.
Nice critical response to it and fan response, eh?
Yeah, the reviews seem to be pretty good. Yeah, that we've had
Good.
So far anyway. Yeah.
Robert, now that it's been uncorked, how are you feeling? Uh-oh. You have to unmute your... There you go.
Yeah, I'm just glad that at the end of all the time that we've spent writing and recording it, we finally got to the end. We've actually got the record released because we finished it well over a year ago, and then it took about a year for it to get pressed onto vinyl. So we've had quite a long wait.
We will talk about later in the conversation about pressing on vinyl, streaming, all that stuff, and just kind of get a feel for how you guys, what's your opinion on just trying to stay connected with your fan base. And then, of course, any kind of tour, stuff like that. Now, before we start the album listening party, what were you doing yesterday, David?
Well, we had an album launch. So, yeah, we launched at HMV in Princes Street in Edinburgh. They've got like they've opened up a new shop, which used to be a Gap store. But of course, there's not so many Gaps around these days, physically anyway. So yes, they've got a lovely first floor. It looks right on Edinburgh Castle, so it's really pretty cool kind of place to play a gig. Although it's kind of warm because the sun was beating into the big windows, but yeah, it was good fun.
Now, is this something people can check out later? Is there going to be a professional video of this that people can see on YouTube or something?
Yeah, we Instagram lived it, the whole show. It was Stuart's son, Rory. So he's, not professional, semi-professional, but yeah, that was his first gig.
David, Stewart, since you're brothers, where are you two near each other?
Yeah, we live on the outskirts of Edinburgh, so yeah, we are actually quite near, like about 10 minutes apart. I live in a place called Curry. David lives in Juniper Green. They're sort of suburbs connected.
Got it. And Robert, where are you in relation to David and Stewart?
Definitely in the sticks, but his internet connection.
You have to unmute. Can you hear us, Robert?
I can hear you. I can hear you. I can hear you. I can follow you. It just takes a long time for the mute to unmute when I press it. I live about half an hour away from Stuart and David, on the other side of the Forth River. So I live a lot closer to the place where we rehearse. So David and Stuart live 10 minutes away from each other. I live 10 minutes away from the place where we meet to record, rehearse, and play.
What? I don't want to get too long-winded about this, but since the pandemic, do you guys feel it's over where you kind of are located, or are people still wearing masks?
The odd person does, but it's yeah, it feels pretty over. Like yesterday in HMV, it was pretty packed in. But yeah, you see the odd person. I guess if you go to doctor's surgery, you're supposed to wear a mask. But yeah, apart from that, it's back to normal.
Did the pandemic hit you guys hard?
Yeah, it did. There was a point in time when you weren't allowed to cross kind of to the different counties in Scotland or in the UK. And because Robert is across in Fife and we are in Edinburgh, you weren't allowed to we weren't allowed to go across there. So yeah, there was a chunk of about maybe a year and a half where we couldn't rehearse. I suppose the rehearsal room was closed and then yeah, we weren't allowed to go over there anyway. So.
But when the rehearsal room opened back up again, they turned one of the hi-hat stands into a stingy dispenser, so you could push the pedal and it would dispense you. It's kind of cool.
Yep. And did you guys get the COVID?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Only once. I had it last summer. Yeah. No, I hadn't had it again. What about yourself? Have you had it?
I did. I got it last March, and it wasn't. I mean, for me, it wasn't that bad. A massive headache for 3 days, achiness, but other than that, 5-7 days, I was ready to go.
Yeah,
but I know.
Had you had the vaccine and stuff?
I only got pricked one time. That's it.
Yeah.
I know people have gone multiple times, but yeah. What about you, Robert?
Yeah, I got the vaccine, and the first time I got the vaccine made me ill. And then I got the other 2 vaccines that someone of my age group would get in Scotland, and then I still got it. But I guess it wasn't as bad as it could have been because of the vaccination. Yeah. But man, I was out for a week. I was properly floored when I got it. Like, it was horrible.
I think one of the things I took away from this, I loved how it slowed down life for a lot of people.
Yep. Me too.
The earth just kind of took a breath for a long time. I know people have had some very severe tragedies with it, so I'm not, making light of it. But yeah, there were some great things that really came about. But we're here to talk about the music in this brand new album. So we're going to do a listening party right now, and I'm going to tell people that are tuning in how to do this from their own device at home. So everyone, take a good listen. This is how we're going to do this. So what you're going to do is you're going to queue up the album for Sapphire Needle. You may have already downloaded it. You can stream it it's on Spotify. Awesome. Some people have the vinyl copy. Is that correct?
Yep.
Did you guys make cassette tapes? No.
Not this time.
Okay.
No, just the vinyl.
So whatever format you have at home, you're going to hit play. When I say these 2 words, hit it. So that's what HI stands for. Hit it. And then we will follow along through the comments section. I will be posting the song titles, so you kind of know where we're at. And then as you're listening to the music, absorb it, sponge it all up, and feel free to comment how the song is evoking some kind of feeling. Maybe you have a question for David Stewart and or Robert. And that's pretty much it. And then after the album is over, I think it's 45 minutes, 46 minutes, maybe somewhere on there. I'll be just doing a short Q&A with David Stewart and Robert. Okay. All right. So everyone right now, get the album queued up. I will do the same here. I love it because it's like you've uncorked this champagne or this wine bottle, and you're just letting it breathe out into the ether and just feeling the responses from people. And this is probably exciting for you guys, even though you've heard these songs 2,000 times, if not more. So I'm sure that each song will have a different feeling for you. If you're not sure of the album, again, it is For Sapphire Needle. The first track will be Leatherback. So when I say hit it, everyone, I'm going to turn off my, I'll mute myself, and then we'll start. And then David, Stewart, Robert, looks like you're all muted. You can turn your screen on or off. Totally your choice. Okay? All righty. Everyone queued up. Here we go. The Zephyrs, For Sapphire Needle, album number 6. Ready? Hit it. You're tuning in for Sapphire Needle album listening party with the Zephyrs. This is track number 3, December. That is so good. Blue in the Face for Sapphire Needle album listening party. Turn it up. What a track. I Tell You What is next. You're listening to For Sapphire Needle album listening party with the band Zephyrs, Robert Dillon, Stuart Nickel, David Nickel. I am W, aka William. We have a couple more tracks here, then we'll get into a Q&A session. So get those questions ready. This is How Have You Been Today? Turn it up. Turn it up loud. Oh my goodness. I'm done on my end. Are you guys done? Yeah. That was
finished.
Bravo. Awesome. Thank you. And that went fast, which is always a good sign, right? For a good album. So I want to ask you guys, we've been doing this for a while. And after hearing these songs, what are your feelings? What's your takeaway? Are you very satisfied with the work? Or when listening to that, are you kind of picking it apart going, ooh, we could have done something different here? What's the overall vibe sentiment with this album? Robert? Stuart?
I'm pretty happy with that, actually. I think we went round in circles quite a lot with it. It took quite a while to record. And a lot of the songs are have been around for a bit as well. Like, we've rehearsed them quite a lot. I think there's only a couple of bits probably that I still question, but mainly pretty happy with it.
David?
Yeah, I haven't actually listened to it from start to finish in a long time. And we don't play the songs quite like that. They're slightly different live, and that just evolved through practicing them time and time again, and they've kind of deviated away from the recording. But I think that was perfect. Yeah, I think I wouldn't change anything. I was on the record there. I think it was all how it was intended to be. The aliens, the kind of noises in the background, compliment of that doesn't happen live, so it's cool to hear that happening. So I've not heard that in a while.
Robert?
I think we took our time when we were making the record, mainly through COVID and mainly through other reasons. But I'm really glad that we took our time, because I think the product that we got at the end and the songs, the way that the songs came through at the end, I don't think we could have done it any better. I think there might be one or two things where you might go back and change a couple of seconds worth of music, but on the whole, I think it's a really decent record. I'm really proud of what we've done.
And you guys want to talk to us about your role for this album? What were you doing specifically? Let's start with Robert.
Stuart writes the songs and brings them in, and some songs make it through the sort of quality control process, and some songs might not stick around for that long. But Stuart brings the songs in, and then collectively we work them into something, and then we kind of just put in your own personal opinion musically, and then you put in your own personal opinion sort of in terms of what you actually think. I'm sure that there's quite a few songs that we could go back to and revisit that could have made this album. I think when we originally started, we had about 16 and a couple got dropped. We recorded 14 songs and used the 9 that are on the record. Is it 9 on the record? I think so.
10.
Is it 10? So there's 4 other songs. One was Crown Prince of Lies, and that ended up being a single. So that was one track that could have been on the album. That single came out a bunch of years ago. And then we've got 3 songs to one side that we yet to release from the same sessions.
In terms of you collaborating, how did this album, what was the first seed that was planted? And Ada can respond too. Stuart, you want to go for that one?
I think when we first started recording, it was going to be, we recorded an EP first. I think it had December and Snowline and Can't Tell Us Apart and God Loves a Trier. And we were going to put it out as an EP, and that must have been just before the whole COVID thing, I think. And it was recorded with a different engineer as well. And then we kind of came back to it with the other songs and decided to expand it.
I hear Ada wants to bark in with something. Robert, do you want to share anything?
Yeah, the dog's upstairs. She's been sitting nibbling my arm as we've been listening to the record. So she's decided to go and annoy somebody else in the household. I think she just wants feeding or attention. Yeah, there's definitely whooping going on. I could mute my mic, but it's just better that you hear the dog. Yeah, the dog seems to like the record, to be honest. I think that's sort of quite a heavy quality control / quite a heavy positive review from the dog, I must admit. Yeah, we seem to have had some nice people commenting nicely on the songs as well, which is nice because you kind of put a lot on the line when you're writing and recording, especially when you've spent a lot of years trying to get this record to actually be as good as you wanted it to be. So to get the positive commentary off the dog and to get my arm tugged, yeah, I'm happy with that.
David, thank you, Robert. David, what were some of the struggles in making this album? And you do the bass work, is that correct?
Yeah. When it comes to the studio and rehearsal, it's really, I guess, Stuart and Robert that kind of pull things together and give it a direction. Robert's really a guitarist and adorable, so he's a songsmith in his own right. So, that kind of the collaboration is really between those two guys, and so I'm focused. For me personally, I'm focusing on his drumming. He doesn't play like a real drummer. He plays like I say he plays the drums like a guitarist would play the drums, and it's quite dynamic and musically, and I think that really works. So I'm spending a lot of time kind of focusing on where he's going with that, rather than he's not like a human drum machine, So he's definitely not one of those. And so I wouldn't say that's a challenge though. Finding the time, I guess. Yeah, it's late nights.
Yeah.
And then getting out for work. So
we can't find the time to book a studio for 6 weeks and be professional musicians day in, day out for 6 weeks. Like how Adorable might have made a record, because we all have different things like career-wise than just doing the music. But in a way, it's good because it means we have to take longer to make the record. But in a way, it's not so good because it takes you longer to make the record. But I think we just make the best of the situation that we're in. Our biggest problem historically has been getting access to Michael and the studio. Not that it's busy, it's just Michael's a busy professional sound engineer, and he goes on to a tour, you won't see him for 2 months, so you sort of have to put things on hold. But on saying that, I don't actually regret that, because I think working with Michael, the Michael Brennan, the guy that produced the record, has brought the best out of the songs and the best out of us. So I think it was worth the wait. But it might be interesting for the Zephyrs to actually try and do like an album in 1 or 2 weeks rather than, 7 or 8 years, just to see what it feels like.
Yeah, it's been a while. So let's go all the way back. What is it? 98, 99, first album? It's okay not to say anything. How has the band evolved? Where's the progression? David, you want to take that one? Stuart? Doesn't matter.
To be honest, Stuart's memory is a lot better than mine. He could tell a better story. Go on, Stuart.
It's always been a bit of I think it's been a bit of a natural progression, because David and I were always in bands together. I think I used to play the bass, and David used to play guitar. I think I was 15 when we did our first gig, and I'm trying to think that record. Well, that record, the first record we did do in a stint, like we just recorded it within about 3 days or something. I seem to remember we booked 7 days in with Michael Brett. It was the same engineer that we always use, and we shared it with another band. So this other band, Pilot Can, this Edinburgh band, did 3 or 4 of the days, and we did the other 3 or 4. And we both sort of got an album each out of it. And the guy from the other band he had a small local record label, and he put the first album out. But yeah, the band's changed a lot since then. It's like David and I are the only original members, and we've gone through a lot of kind of there's quite a long list of previous members. I think at one point, we expanded out to about 7 or 8 people at one point. I think like there was a lot of people, and it was kind of hard to.
You're like the wedding present or the Chills.
Yeah, like that, but not quite as, but different.
I think
it wasn't always smooth sailing either.
I think if you total up the number of people that have been through the Zephyrs, you probably get to about 15 or 16 people if you add them all up.
It's not quite the Fall, but.
So each band has their signature trademark sound. You get labeled by the critics and fans and this and that, and each band knows its strengths. What are your strengths as a band? Where do you feel like you're really what's your bread and butter?
Stuart's songs.
Tell us more about that, Stuart.
Yeah, no, I think there's a consistency through. Although we've been, it's like 22 years or something since we did the first album. There's a sort of a consistency through that. We've not really been kind of pulled in different directions by the kind of current trends or whatever. I think it's it's been fairly consistent. I think I don't know. It's weird. We kind of quite often get the shoegaze thing.
Yeah.
Which sort of it's a weird one, because I think it probably mainly comes from Setting Sun, the sort of song on our second album, and we had Rachel Goswell singing it. But then that was purely accidental, because actually Setting Sun was quite an upbeat country type song. And the guy who was from the record label at that time, John Niven, the author, like he was running the record label we were on, and he didn't like the song. And we were really short of songs for that album. So like we just to try and like kind of cut through and make it something that we could add in the album, we slowed it right down in the studio, and the drummer couldn't play it, and we had to sequence the drums, and Michael just happened to know Rachel from working with Slowdive, and we went down to her flat in London, and she recorded the vocals on it. And I think John Cummins from Mogwai did kind of a sort of weird sort of slide guitar on it and stuff, and it ended up sounding accidentally a bit shoegazy. And but yeah, we've always had that sort of tag, but I'm not sure how accurate that is.
I would love to know from David. So when did music become part of your life? When did you know, okay, this is what I kind of just want to do?
God, yeah, I was thinking about that recently, actually, yesterday, actually, because a guy who was kind of very influential to me turned up at our album launch yesterday and just stood at the back. We didn't know he was even there. Andrew Tully, who was in Rote Capelle and Jesse Garon and the Desperados, and he lives as Stuart's in a wee village called Curry, and I'm in Jubilee, but Andrew Tully is from Balerno, and there's like 3 villages together, and in that way back in the early 80s, he was in those bands, and that was an influential time for me. You know, there was a lot of things going on in Edinburgh and obviously in Glasgow too with the Pastels and all those bands. And I rented a rehearsal room which is effectively a dungeon where they buried the people from the plague victims from way back, which is really far down in the middle of Edinburgh and in the double, triple basements of the big buildings there. And we just I got to know lots of people, and everyone practiced there. Everyone went to this pub called the Green Tree around the corner for a beer after the rehearsal, and it was this really cool community. It wasn't a big community, but maybe like 10, 15 bands, but we all just hung out together. And there's one of the guys from the back then, Adrian Smith Tuft, he's been chatting away here tonight as well. He was in the Holidaymakers. He was one of those guys in his bands in that scene at the time. And I think we all just, Stuart became part of that. Stuart's 4 years younger than me, so I did that when Stuart was still like early school years, and then instantly that we got together and started playing bands, and my wife was the bass player at one point. A guy who we've written a song about, Stargazer, used to be a drummer in the band, way back. And that's a particularly sad song, particularly sad story, but it's just been it's part of our life. It's part of our life from 14, 15-year-old.
Do either of you two want to talk about just the history of the name of your band?
It was my dad's had a band in the 60s called the Zephyrs. I think my dad was in a few bands. I think he had a band called the Rascals, and they all had matching tartan suits and stuff. And then he had a band called the Zephyrs, and I think later he had like a folk band as well, where they all wore those kind of Aaron jumpers and stuff. I think when he was in the Zephyrs, I think that's how my mum and dad. That's how our mum and dad met. Like he played in this band. They did kind of dances in the 60s, and my mum was the gala queen in Curry, and he'd come out. They were the band sort of thing, and there was mutual family friends and stuff. So I think that's how they kind of met through the band thing.
I think music's always been through our dad and through other family connections.
What about your Uncle Jimmy?
Yeah, I was just so we have. It's a musical family. My dad's cousin is a guy called Jimmy Nicol, who was in the Beatles for 2 weeks. So he was Ringo Starr had acute tonsillitis, and he couldn't do the First World Tour, and so Jimmy was a session musician in London at the time. He's my dad's cousin. They were very close. He grew up in Edinburgh, but he was in London, and he got the gig, and so he toured Australia, Hong Kong, and the Beatles, playing for the Beatles, and then came back to London, and then we kind of lost touch with him. Well, but I wasn't born at that point, but it's a long. So there's a film getting made.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there is a film. Supposedly, a film. Yeah, there's a book being written. I can't remember. What's the name of the book again?
The Lost Beetle or something.
Lost Beetle, yeah. Yeah, and so there's a right to the film, and someone's making it. I can't remember who's making it. It's a guy, some guy, Roy Orbison's son, is it, or something? Some weird story.
Do you know when that might see the light of day?
Well, the book's released. Yeah, the book's been there for a good few years.
The
guy who wrote the book is an American guy, and he flew across to Edinburgh and sat down with my dad and a beer and chatted to him and stuff. Got read some stuff. That got put in the books.
Oh, it's the beetle who vanished. That's what it is.
Yes.
I found it there.
That's a great story. That's good
Yeah,
stuff.
I think so. It's just been a part of our, our heritage. Although I do remember my dad saying to me, "If you rent a room in that rehearsal room, they're going to totally fill out with me." So I went and did it.
So for David and Stuart, so can you share with us some of the bands that really hooked you and inspired you while growing up?
So yeah, I mean the thing I always come back to is Joy Division and New Order, like, but only I suppose only up to Brotherhood, like the first 4 New Order albums. I think I still kind of listen to them all the time, and it was David that got me into that. But apart from that, there was all the kind of sort of local Edinburgh indie kind of bands like the Shop Assistants and stuff.
Yeah.
House of Love too. But I remember. I mean, I love like really deep, long bass. I like playing loud, and it really annoys everybody else actually. But I do like playing loud, and I remember going to see the Swans at the venue in Edinburgh once, and oh man, the bass was so loud. It was just like, and I kind of said, I had, I think a lasting effect on my ears and my.
I hear. I've never seen them perform, but I hear that it's just an experience you can't even describe.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, your whole chest just moving, just like going through your body, the bass is crazy. So I'm trying to replicate that.
Robert, let's get to you. Tell us a little bit about your musical background.
Well, I guess you know about some of the Adorable stuff.
Yeah. Let's go before that.
Previous to that, my brother was 2 years older, so not exactly the same as Stuart and David, but the same idea as having an older brother. So he had the guitar. There was a guitar in the house. I got a drum kit when I was 12. Started borrowing my brother's guitar when I was 13, and sort of tried to teach myself how to play. And then in Coventry, there was the whole idea about, again, a local band scene. I guess the Primitives were around at the time, and you've got the sort of history of the city as well. But we just started doing our indie band stuff. That turned into Adorable in the end. And in terms of what I was doing, like musically, I was going up to Scotland a lot to meet Michael, our record producer, because he was a good friend of mine anyway, because he used to work with Adorable, and I used to go snowboarding. And when I was coming up to Scotland to visit, if there was a band in the studio, I'd go in and sort of listen to what was going on. And it turned out that the Zephyrs was one of those bands. And then I was in Coventry, and I got a phone call from Michael at 1 o'clock in the morning sometime saying, "Do you want to join the Zephyrs?" And I just went, "Yeah, phone me tomorrow. I'm going back to sleep." And then that was it. So a couple of years later, it's like, well, time to move to Scotland, time to do the band. But yeah, musical history, Adorable. Current history, the Zephyrs. I've been very fortunate to be in 2 bands that I really like, that have got really good songwriters. And again, that for me is what it's about, the quality of the songs. If you can play them and communicate the ideas, then you're doing well.
And is there a particular band or two that you grew up with, Beatles, Stones, or anything that just kind of opened your ears?
Started with the Shadows when I was young, got into the Clash when I was older, got into the Jam, and all that sort of thing that was around at the time. 1979, being from Coventry, everyone was into Two-Tone and the Specials. Quite like the Jam at the time. Got into the punk rock thing, got into the indie thing off the back of punk rock. The Smiths and the Jesus and Mary Chain were really important bands to me. But then it's like David was saying earlier on, when I was sort of 17 and 18 and getting into indie music, used to like all of the Scottish bands, like the Glasgow bands like the Pastels and the Edinburgh bands like the Shop Assistants. So again, I guess there's this sort of common unspoken musical thing. Historically, the 3 of us all seem to like the same sort of music. But I guess if you were going to list our favourite bands, they would be different bands. But yeah, guitar music. But also, funnily enough, getting into the kind of country music thing getting into the Byrds probably through liking Primal Scream, getting into 60s garage music, getting into the Beach Boys, but also getting into stuff like, you know, Graham Parsons, you know, moving away from like indie guitar music and into that kind of sound as well. And I think what the Zephyrs does is it takes those different elements of those different ideas or different genres and just tries to put them into something that works.
I want to go back to the album and the artwork, the album cover. Stuart, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's a photograph by our friend Dave Gourley, who we've known for a long time. He's like, I think Dave's originally Irish, but lives in Glasgow via Inverness, I think. I thought, yeah, we met Dave at the very first Bully Weekender down at Camber Sands. Like, I can't remember when that would have been, like 2000 or something like that. The one that Bell and Sebastian organised, and we'd come down from Edinburgh and Dave would come down from Glasgow. We had mutual friends, but yeah, Dave is like not a professional photographer, but like does it as a hobby, and we sort of kind of commissioned him to do it. So he had this concept of kind of chaos and nature or something like that. I think was his kind of quote. We gave him an early recording of the album, and then that's what he came up with. But there's a few different variations of that shot. I think it's like a blossom tree outside his house in Glasgow, and it's just a shaky. I think it must be on a long exposure. I think, but you kind of get it's really nice how you get the kind of the blossoms, but then there's kind of the light has kind of shifted, so it looks a bit like a kind of laser or something like that. But there's a few different versions. I think his daughter appears in one of them. Like if you look up "Blue in the Face," the single on Spotify, there's a version of that photograph of his daughter in it. Yeah, there was a few different ideas he came up with, but that was definitely the strongest one.
Now, is that something all three of you decide and say, yes, thumbs up? Or what happens if there's a difference of opinion? David?
I think we do. We don't always agree. We don't think we did all agree on it. I think it comes down to a compromise, and I think we see the logic in it. I think that for me that cover just felt right because it has that kind of 80s indie thing about it, and I wanted it to feel like that, and so I think we just got to a logical conclusion by just rationalizing it in our heads together, and just we came to an agreement. But yeah, we'll just talk it through until it's but that kind of 80s indie was definitely the kind of purple smudges of color just felt right to me.
I would love to know from kind of a planning, executive functioning, organizational skills, when the album is done, can you let us know about the process in the promotional piece? Everywhere from getting that album artwork cover, when people are tugging at you, maybe some writers are saying, okay, I want to do a written piece on this. How do you schedule that? Who kind of leads that? Do you have calendar dates that you shoot for? Give us a little behind the scenes of that.
We are the least efficient and effective band, promotional wise, that you've ever heard of.
It only takes you several years. It's okay.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about this the other day though, actually. Like this album's, I think every album we've put out tend to have been on a different label, but this album definitely feels like the one that we've had the most control over. Like especially when it comes to the kind of promotion bit. Like in the past, you kind of the record label will just kind of go off and you don't really know what's happening, and they kind of have the relationship with the. Well, either there is no promotion, like in the UK with the Bright Yellow Flowers album we put out in Acurella, there wasn't really any promotion here. But I suppose Acurella, the Spanish label that the album came out, and they're just kind of Jesus that runs that label is just really a friend that we've had for a long time. And it, when we recorded it, we just, we wanted to release it, so we got in touch with him, and he's the easiest to get on with, and he's a fan, he likes it, so it was like, yeah, let's do it. But he doesn't have much money. It's it's a super indie kind of label that, just him and his wife that run it. So that, yeah, he's not very organized. He's totally disorganized, and so are we. So
we've acted to get some help from someone called Katie. So hello, Katie, and thank you. But yeah, it's kind of funny because it's all right having the ideas, but then putting them into practice, it's like, well, okay, let me finish the sort of 8 hours of work I have to do at work, and then I'll see if we can find some time in an evening to maybe put something together. So it's kind of hard and a bit of a challenge to deal with everything when you're not doing it full time.
Sure.
But on saying that, I think we have actually put quite a lot of time and our own money into this one to get the record to be recognized as being released, and we have seen the benefits from it. But it's one of those things. It takes you money to make the record. It takes you money to promote the record, and the amount that we've sort of spent, not that we're doing it for the money, but it would be nice to be able to break even just so that we could make a record again. But if you want to sell millions and millions of records, you can see why record labels end up spending millions and millions of dollars in order to do it.
I think Jesus Laurenti is his name. I think he's our biggest fan. I think he's such a lovely guy. He actually came to see us in Edinburgh before we'd ever met him. He lives in Madrid, but I can't remember who we were supporting. So
we were supporting Kramer and Dockbull in it.
Yeah, and he seen us, and then years later we ended up signed to his label and met him. He's been a great friend.
But I think we've pretty much done this one ourselves. I mean, Jesus got the vinyl printed up, and he's got a distribution deal with Cargo in the UK. And then I guess we have to make the decision about how much kind of we were going to push on PR and press, the kind of press stuff. So Jesus had a limited budget, so we decided to get somebody to help us PR. So we've got Katie Guthrie's been helping us with some of the social media stuff, and then we've got Rachel Silver PR has been doing the press. And then Ewan Hall has been doing radio plugging for us. But we kind of got each one of them. I suppose Rachel Silver PR, that was via Cargo, because of course these people there's only so much work that they can do, so we had to kind of send the record to her to see whether she liked the record and would want to work with us, and then did. So yeah, that. You can kind of see, if you don't do that, then you don't get into the kind of the monthly magazines or the online fanzines and stuff like that. So you kind of have to spend the money to get on the radar there. Because if you just do it, we had to kind of make some budgetary decisions because we were going to have to cover that stuff to, is it, if we're going to release the album, we might as well do it properly and make a kind of effort at it.
So since you guys, all of you have been doing this for such a long time, the music industry has obviously shifted in seismic speed and impact. Where do you feel like the industry benefits you? How have you been able to roll and move with the times? And what good have you seen come about? And obviously social media has played a huge role and how people access your music and whatever. So I want to hear from Robert. What's your take on the music industry and just kind of acclimating to the changes?
I think the thing that you need to appreciate the Zephyrs is we're not really involved in the music industry because we're not a signed band. Mm-hmm. As in, we don't get advanced. We don't do this full time. So I could sit and compare the experience to what I have seen with Adorable, but it's kind of almost impossible to try to define the Zephyrs in terms of what Adorable did, because when I was doing Adorable, it was my job. When I'm doing the Zephyrs, I'm doing it because I like doing it. Of course, I like doing Adorable, but I think the biggest difference for us on a personal level is just the fact that we fund it ourselves. So how is the business? Well, the business is basically us. The thing that I do like about the Zephyrs, though, is even though Stuart and David have obviously been in the band through its entire existence, and I've been in it for a period of time, I think the band's got a really strong back catalogue. I mean, to have 5 other albums out, and I personally like all of them, whether I played on the record or not, for different reasons. But it's nice to think that this album is, I think, the best Zephyrs album that's been made. But you're always supposed to think that the next record that you make is going to be the best that you make, or else there's no point in starting making the next record. But I think to answer that question, W, in terms of the business, we're really not that involved in the music business, to be honest. We're just involved in trying to promote our own sort of music, and again, having Acurella to even be there to help us to put the records out. You know, it's all very friendly and low key, as opposed to businessy and, you know, keeping receipts to claim expenses and all that sort of stuff. That doesn't happen at all.
When I look back to just my thoughts on it, when I look back to what it used to, you know, people used to hang about with who were part of the music business, like bands like Snow Patrol, who we hung about with, they recorded the substation, same place we recorded, or still record, and they were slogging it out in a van. They just like spent 2 years in the back of a van, and just, you know, we call it in the UK, we call it the toilet tour, where it's like you just you know, it's not very salubrious gigs, you know, and I don't know if that still goes on anymore. It's much more social media based now. I don't know if people are slogging it out in the back of a van for, you know, years, and then, you know, and maybe getting lucky like they did. It's much more. I've seen a slide recently by someone who said that any musician's got to spend half the time on social media and half the time doing music. And I guess that's maybe the equivalent of the back of the van.
Yeah. Stuart, anything you want to share there?
Yeah. What was the original question?
What's the name of Robert's dog? No.
I think another thing to say, W, is the music business is different when you're 20 as to when you are 50. Okay, that's completely the thing that gets me about now. Like, if I'm 50, right, the last thing I'd want to be is a professional musician. Jesus Christ, I've got to pay bills. You know, I've got to take my daughter to school. I can't go off gallivanting around, sticking needles in my arms, and, you know, I've got to walk the dog, man.
the rudimentaries of life. So, Stuart, we're just talking about how the music industry has really changed or not changed from your observations.
Yeah, I don't know. We've always only been tangentially involved, I guess. There was a point in time where we kind of had a manager, and it was just after we had the second album out, and we were on the kind of record label that was kind of Southpaw, which was part of Play It Again, Sam, and, you know, it was all London based, and we kind of go down to London, and we did get advances and stuff like that, but you know, it was pretty horrible, actually. I didn't really, you know, it was kind of fun, like, because I've never been a professional musician ever. I always work, and so those kind of periods of time were holidays for me, just to muck about. It was like to enjoy, and then but actually, it's the music business is a business, and people are kind of making and losing money, and if you're not taking it seriously, then you know, you can only get away with that for so long. And yeah, I think that's part of that is like in one of the songs there's a kind of thing about this isn't a holiday, and I remember we went to do a tour of Italy, and the guy there was just got really frustrated with us because we were kind of drinking and having a bit, playing a gig, and then just really just kind of having a good time. And he was literally like, "This isn't a holiday. What he's doing." We're like, "I think you'll find it is a holiday."
Do you like playing? Do you like incorporating social media, or is that just you have to? You have to play that game now with social, whether it be Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, whatever platform.
That's why we hired Katie, basically, because you do need social media. But
Yeah.
as a 53-year-old male, I couldn't give a flying about social media. Seriously, I am just not bothered. My daughter is, but that's like, well, no, she's not so much bothered about social media. She's bothered about YouTube. But in terms of having to promote things, I still think that I sort of personally come from a background where you just did the music and everybody else did the promotion because you hired somebody to deal with the promotion so that you could just concentrate on the music. But I think nowadays that's different.
Mm-hmm.
But again, if I was 20 and I had the time and the desire to want to push myself because I wanted to be more internationally famous than I currently am, I'd probably spend a lot of time worrying about it. But now that I'm 53 and I'm already internationally famous, I just really thought, I'm happy with people liking the music, and that's fine. And if we can use social media to sort of tell them that we got something going on, that's great. But I don't want to use social media to back up any ego situation that I have, which is what seems to be happening.
David, what would you
see that with other people?
No, thank you for sharing. David, what would you recommend to people who are trying to get into this line of business?
I would say, David, I don't know if this is your answer, but I would say don't do it. Leave it alone. Go and get a proper job. What are you doing? Don't be so silly.
I think go to gigs. So there's not. Yeah, I'm trying. I've got two girls, and they're now both away at university. So I'm officially an empty nester, just go to gigs and just get involved in the scene. I don't think when I think back to what I did, that it was just that. As I said earlier, going to see Jesse Grom when I was 13, 14, and just getting really involved in the scene. I think that it's still possible to do that. It's coming back. Obviously, COVID had, unfortunately, COVID had a really huge effect on the kind of my children because they would at that age where they could have went to do that but couldn't. So so they're making they're doing stuff like two a few years and that. So and they go to see her. So yeah, I think, and I'm trying to encourage them to be in bands. But yeah, I think it's be part of the environment.
Yeah,
the scene. And Glasgow's still actually very good. I think Glasgow's still got a very good scene going on. Places like the Hug and Pint on Great Western Road. It's just got a good vibe, and there's I think it's just been part of the scene really.
One of my favorite questions I like to ask artists. So let me give you an example. There's a band from the 80s called the Wild Swans out of Liverpool. They're, from Echo and the Bunnymen, Teardrop Explodes era. Well, their biggest fan base has to be in the Philippines. How that came to be, no idea. He has no idea, Paul Simpson, but he's treated like a god there. So here's my question for you. Where do you find your most rabid fans? Is there a pocket of the world that's like, how the hell did that happen? Is it Colorado?
I think my most rabid fans is sitting in the dog crate, which is not upstairs trying to eat the furniture.
No, I think it's always been in Spain because I don't know, I'm not quite sure why. I think Stargazer was on the cover of a cover CD of, is it Rock Deluxe or some big kind of music magazine in Spain, but certainly that's a place that we've toured more in Spain than we have in the UK. Jesus has got us across there quite a few times, but I remember in the past it was always you're big in Japan kind of thing, but we seem to be kind of big in Spain, like doing big festivals and stuff, and like yeah, we did Benny Cassim a couple of times, and we'd be on the same. Yeah, we kind of opened on the stage that I think Oasis and that were like headlining. But it's a bit weird, but I think the atmosphere in Spain's a little bit different. There seems to be more arts funding in Spain, so smaller bands can go and properly tour, and there's kind of local kind of council funding to put gigs on. It's a bit more of a community. I think in the UK there's no government funding for this kind of stuff, and you have to have your own money you have to be independently wealthy to be a musician now, I think.
David, would you say that's true?
Yeah, I think that. The Spanish tours we've done have always been the best, and that is where we've met the most people who've been into the music, and UK's always been kind of odd, and but I'd like to go back to Spain this year. Hopefully that'll happen.
They have the incredible music festival, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Primavera.
Yeah, we did Primavera once. That was the first ever time we went across was Primavera, but by that point it was in the villages of Spain. Have you ever been in Barcelona? And the bit like it's up near the Olympic Village, and they built this kind of area, and it's meant to represent all the different regions of Spain. And yeah, it was amazing. Like the festival in there was totally amazing.
So is that something you have to insert yourself into? Hey, we want to try to play this festival, or is that something a tour manager comes to you and says, hey, you guys interested in playing? You've been asked. Like, how does that even work?
Yeah, so all the Spanish stuff has been Jesus from Acurella. They're essentially they're a record label, but they also promote bands and tour with bands. So we could kind of go across, and Jesus can't drive, but you go across and it'll be his girlfriend or his mate that is driving the van for us around Spain. But yeah, no, he sorts that all of that out. It's kind of a weird thing. We've done the Primavera once and Benny Cassim twice, and then been across to Spain about 10 times. No idea how much we've ever been paid for any of that. Other than Jesus just kind of says, I'll pay for the flights, all your accommodation, and you'll get dinner every night. That sounds pretty good to me. So he obviously kind of must make a bit of a profit out of it, but it's fine.
Are you guys going to do any? Adrian asked, when are you touring, boys?
Yeah, that's another thing that we need to sit down and properly actually do something with. And if you want to get gigs, the easiest way to get gigs is to get an agent and then get someone to book them for you. But we don't have an agent, so it's really difficult to find the time to be able to go and book gigs. And don't forget, as we've discussed, we're historically lazy and inefficient. So I don't know. It would be nice to actually sit down now that we've sort of put the album out and everything else, and we know that we can do it, to go out and actually say we should play. But it's finding the time, it's finding the place, because we can't go and play Colchester on a Wednesday night because we've got work on a Thursday. It's just one of those things.
Do you go, Stuart?
No, go on, dude.
I was just saying, an ex-band member, Charlie Clark, who played for us, who played mandolin and sung for us for a while. He's from his original band, or his main band's Astrid, and he's put on a festival in Stornoway, where he's from, which is in the Hebrides. Primal Screamer headlining one night. So hopefully we'll get up there. But that would be cool. I don't know if he's not finalised the lineup yet, but hopefully.
What a daunting task, though, as Robert alluded to. Just like if you don't have someone out on the front lines doing that for you, I can imagine just like, oh my God, coordinating all your schedules. And how far do you have to plan out to book these gigs?
Yeah, I mean, we had an agent at one time, and I don't think I'd ever get involved in that ever again. It was just, it was a pretty, I think agents, you just kind of, there's the music business there's a whole bunch of folk making a living out of it, and usually it's not the artists. And the agent seems like the one that they kind of like they take, you know, they're not the promoters, so they're not taking a chance on whether people are turning up to the gig or not. The band's on a guaranteed kind of the promoter's got to pay the band anyway, and out of that payment, the agent's going to take a percentage. So they're kind of on a win-win. I don't really get. And when we were with an agent, we just kind of didn't have our best interests at heart. Like, you would be doing a gig and you'd have a support band. Like, I remember Secret Machines supported us at a gig one time, and it was just Secret Machines were warming up for something else, and they didn't want to take the risk of headlining the gig, so we got chucked in. And yeah, and then you've got other things where somebody comes to you direct to offer you a gig, but you have to go to the agent, and then you get the agent going, oh, well, I'm going to put one of my other bands on there because it works out for their tour schedule, and you just never touch agents. So and also with gigs, it's like there's no point doing a gig unless the people that are doing the promoters really want you to play. Because that's the other thing. An agent's just there's a whole kind of relationship between promoters and agents. You scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. So you put this band on and I'll give you a bigger band in like next month. So like that's the other thing. You end up turning up to play with a promoter that actually doesn't want you. They want the bigger bands that the agent's going to throw their way next month. So, and those are just thankless kind of things. We work, you know, there's no point in, like, you know, that's really what you're meant to do as a band, but there's no point. If you're not enjoying it, what's the point? Like,
Robert, do you want to share anything before we wrap this up?
Yes, I am 53 years old. I have earned the right to be a grumpy old bastard.
I don't think anyone wants to argue with that.
Well, the funny thing is, right, is I really enjoy playing the Zephyrs music, and this will sound really difficult to comprehend, but you know, I get just as much out of being in the band, going and rehearsing and playing the songs, if it's just the three of us, or if it's the four of us, or if it's the five of us, depending on how many people can make that particular rehearsal. And I'm not overtly worried about going and playing to hundreds and hundreds of people. If we get the opportunity to play a gig and there's people there and they like it, it's great. But I don't mind not playing live. It would be nice to, but I'm just as happy just sitting, writing the songs, rehearsing the songs, getting stuff coming out of Stuart's guitar so we can, you know, create something new. I'm actually just all right being where we are. And I think, or I kind of assume that everyone else thinks that. And I think that's where the music comes from. I think we actually do this because we genuinely enjoy it, not because anyone's telling us that we have to do it or telling us what we have to do. And I think it's so much more enjoyable to do it this way than to do it any other way. That's my comment.
For Sapphire Needle, what does that mean to you, David?
That's a good question.
Stuart came up with the title, I believe.
Yeah, it's it's a line out of a Sartre book, like Nausea, like this Patty record for Sapphire Needle. Like, I always thought it was a really cool line. But it also, well, I suppose the whole point, like on old records, they were made for different types of needles. So like the cheaper records were for sapphire needles because the sapphire needles are cheap. The sapphire needle is cheaper than the diamond needle. So the expensive records are for diamond needles, and the cheaper ones, like, you know, for the common person to kind of get access to music, is the sapphire needle ones. So yeah, that's it.
Simple as that.
Stuart came in with the album title, and I just remember going, that's a really good name for a record. I really like that. Stuart does that a lot. He'll turn up with a really good idea, and it's like, I wonder where he came from, and you'll never really know.
So, final question. What's next for you guys?
I'm going to walk the dog.
It's funny because we're sort of we've almost got like another album's worth. It's like I don't know because we rehearse every week, like no matter what, and I suppose like it's like David was saying earlier, the way that we play the songs from the album are kind of different. Like we don't come up with the song and then stick with it. Like things kind of change, and I suppose that's just because we do it to keep it interesting, and we do it to enjoy it, and I suppose the kind of up until a few weeks ago, we weren't playing those songs in the rehearsal room. We're kind of writing new songs because it's kind of what we've been enjoying doing, and we kind of had to put them to one side to kind of get ready for like yesterday's gig and stuff. But yeah, I think once if we don't have any gigs coming up, we'll just be back to trying to polish off those new songs and try. Yeah, one of our really bad habits is coming up with songs and then forgetting them. We need to try not to forget the new songs. So we'll need to get in and rehearse them pretty soon.
David, final words from you?
Yeah, I've been getting into. I bought a Roland synth. It's got kind of analog and it's got like drum. It's got like all the classic analog sounds in it. And so I've been kind of getting really into that and using that a lot rather than playing the bass. And some of the new songs are feeling a bit more electronic-y because they're kind of like no bass in it, and it's I'm keen to go down that direction, but until I get told to pick up my bass again,
which sometimes happens.
Yeah. Any good idea is a good idea, but if it's a bad idea, it's a bad idea. But I'm saying that I think most of the ideas that we have are good, and I think most of the music that we make from those ideas ends up being, something that you can be pleased with.
I think for me, it's like one theme has been through all our music. I think it's drones. I think Stuart and I actually play the bagpipes, and so the bagpipes are a drone instrument through and through. It's the big drone. They're all, and so I was saying earlier about the swans and stuff. I'm getting really into like really loud drones. It kind of takes me back to my bagpipe days.
Drawing album.
This has been great, and it's a great album, and I hope you guys, continue to receive really nice praise for it, and hope it sounds like you're very happy with the final product. And maybe we'll get you out here stateside one day.
It. That'd be cool.
Have you guys been to San Francisco? I know Robert has.
Yeah. I mean, I used to go out. I've been out quite a lot for work. I'm a computer programmer, and so I've worked for American companies most of my career. So I've been out quite a lot of times.
Okay. Stuart?
Sorry.
San Francisco?
I've never been to San Francisco. I've been to, I've only been to America a few times. Boston, Salt Lake City, Boulder. I think that's it. Never been to San Francisco.
That was the last time I saw Robert with Adorable.
All right.
At a little tiny place called Slim's. Very small.
That was 1993.
That's right. That's right.
That was a hell of a gig. Like, that was a good one. We've talked about that before, have we not?
Yeah, that was a good one.
And I can see
go ahead, David.
No, I can see our cousin from Vancouver's on there. I'd love to go to Vancouver. Hello, Ian.
Oh yeah, you need to play Vancouver. Katie's great album, guys. Adrian says woof. Woof. Let's see anyone else comments here. And by the way, we're gonna leave this up here so people can go back and watch it. Eleanor says really enjoyed listening. So yeah, you guys, whenever all your free time, go back and reconnect. Thank you so much for this. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, Robert, I'm glad we were able to get in touch, and thank you for making this happen. Connect me with David and Stuart.
I'm glad you like the record, W. I'm glad you like it.
I do really like it, and it's only going to get better and better. And I actually love it because I got a new subwoofer here. Okay. So I was feeling that bass.
Excellent.
I wanted.
I was feeling some subwoofing as well.
I wanted to piss off a few neighbors. Take care, you guys. Zephyrs, Stuart, David Nickel, Robert Dillon. My name is W, aka William, High Arts on the Edge, and we'll talk to you soon.
Cool. Thank you.
Bye.
See you.